Okay. First thing you're going to want to do is open an ActionScript 3.0 file. We are going to import to the stage a map, United States map. You can find it in the Campus Share Drive in the Animate folder. When you bring it in, you'll realize it's too big for the stage, so that we'll need to resize it. It comes in selected, so if you'll make sure this is locked, we can keep it in proportion and we can resize it. Now, when it comes in, I'm actually, instead of making the width 550, I'm going to make the height 400. That way it is going to be a little bit bigger than the stage, but it's not going to be too much. And then I'm going to use my Align panel. Remember, if yours is not here, you go to Window and find Align. Make sure Align to Stage is checked and choose Align Horizontal Center and Align Vertical Center. And you should have something like this. Now, I am going to, because it's a little crowded on this side, I'm going to bump this to the left a couple, actually to where it fits the right side. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and show frame so I can see the entire map. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rename layer 1 map. And I'm going to add a second layer, and I'm just going to call it star. And I'm actually going to draw, oops, wrong one, a star. Remember, you need the polystar tool. Color is irrelevant. I was about to change the color. It doesn't matter because this is going to be a mask. So I'm going to start by drawing a, oops, I have to click after I change my tool settings to star. I'm going to do 5 sides, 0.5. There we go. And I want my star to be big enough to where I can see it, but not so big that it's bigger than most of these states. So like if I position this over Texas, can you, whoops, it's not cooperating. There we go. Does it cover the text? Okay, so I'm looking, I'm going, okay, well, I've lived here. I'm going to use California as one of mine, and Texas, and a couple of them up here, and okay, so maybe a little bit bigger than what I originally had. Okay, now when we do a mask, as you remember from the last challenge, what is behind this shape is actually what gets seen. Okay, so everything else becomes invisible. So we're going to do the same thing. It's just that now our mask is going to be animated. And in order to animate with a motion tween, we have to make it a symbol first. So I'm going to go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and I'm just going to call this star. It's going to be a graphic with a center registration point, and I'm going to click 0. Okay? Now, I'm going to allow you to choose which states you hover over or which you go to. I'm simply going to make a little trek of the places I've lived, because I've lived in a few different states. Not a ton, but a few. And so I'm going to just start where I was born, and then I'm going to move from one state to another, and I'm going to have each one, our frame rate is 24 frames per second, which is what yours should be. I'm going to take anywhere from a half a second to a second and a half, depending on how far the star has to travel. So you kind of have to determine that. If you have lived in the same place, maybe you need to choose 5 or more states that you would like to visit, or 5 or more states where you have friends or family that lives. Or you can copy exactly what I'm doing so that you don't get confused. I'm going to leave that up to you. Okay. What I'm going to start off doing is I'm going to go ahead and extend my frames of my map layer out to 100, and I'm going to lock it. And that's just so that I know that it's going to be there, and I may have to extend it more later. Okay? And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a motion tween on my star. And by default, remember, it always makes it 1 second. Well, my first trip is just a short distance from Texas to Alabama. So I'm going to have that take about 15 frames. So I'm going to position the playhead over 15, and I am going to move that over Alabama. Okay, and you can see it moving. So it's going to go pretty quick there. Then, believe it or not, I go back. So since I'm going back to the same place, I am going to, oops, that's not what I meant. I'm going to insert frame there, and I am going to move the star back over Texas. Okay? Then I have to travel a little bit further. So I'm going to go a full second here. So 30 and 24, 54, and it doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to go up to Virginia. Okay? Now, the next one, I go clear across the country. So I'm going to actually make this go 2 more seconds. So this is going to go all the way out to 102 to take 2 seconds to go all the way across. However, my map doesn't go that far. So I'm going to go ahead and extend it a little bit more. And I'm going to go back here. And at this point, I'm going to California. And I'm going to do my best to get that star covering the whole word California. And after I go to California, I go back, not to Virginia, but to Maryland. So it's going to take 2 more seconds again. So 102 plus 48, we're now sitting at 150. I'm going to insert frames on both layers. And you can see how I am building this. Again, I'm going by distance. Okay, and yours doesn't have to be exactly like mine does. And then finally, I think when I went from Texas to Virginia, I did one second. So I'll do 1 more second to right here, because after Maryland, I came back here. Okay, so I have a few different places. All right, so if I play my animation right now, it's going, and out. Okay. Now, at this point, since I'm on my last place, I actually want this to finish by showing the entire map. And I'm going to use, I'm going to say up to 220. I'm going to insert frame. That's an F5, remember. Only I'm going to do something different. I'm going to put a keyframe right here next to the last one. Insert keyframe, and I'm going to choose all. So far, the only keyframe we've been putting on here is a position. We want to put all. That way I can also do a rotation and scale on it. Okay? So I'm going to put all. Then, out here on the very last one, I am also going to do insert keyframe all. And at this point, I want to use my scale tool, and I might need to zoom out. Oop, that might be a little too far. Okay. Use my free transform right here so that I can increase the size and notice it's still growing. Okay, let me zoom out some more. Whoops. Let me go back to 50. Maybe I did need it that small. And it's going to keep growing until the star completely covers the map. And I have to zoom out a little bit more even. There we go. Okay, so from here to there, it's zooming out. And if I will right click on that layer, I can now go and choose mask. And if let me start at the beginning. There it goes from each all the way over till it gets there, and then it grows. Okay, so that's the animation. Now, if we publish this, it would play over and over and over again. However, we may want this to stop at the very end so we see the map. So I'm going to put in another layer, and I'm going to call this Actions. And then I'm going to put a keyframe with an F6 here at the very end. You will need your Actions panel. And where is it? There it is. And remember, on your Actions panel, you have code snippets, which can help you out. Okay. And sometimes it's easier to just type it if you know it. Other times, if you know where to find it, you can go there. So I found it under timeline navigation. Stop at this frame. The simple code for it is simply stop, open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon. That's all it is. All this up here is a comment that explains what this does. Okay? And it's saying at the current frame, which is 220. So now that I've done that, let me go ahead and move that. It's not going to cooperate. I'm going to do a save as into my Animate folder, and this is going to be period number, your last name, underscore animated mask. And then I'm going to control test so I can see it. And if the stop action works correctly, once that star grows, it should stop and nothing else should happen. And that is it. So again, make sure you have it saved. Once you save it, when you publish it or test it, it creates the SWF in the same folder. And then you are ready to move on.